Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Imagine this, you're right there, on the verge of the ultimate spiritual reveal. Our source material today puts us right in that moment. It's Lord Krishna making this powerful promise to Arjuna. He's saying, look, I'm finally going to show you the true nature of God, like the ultimate unlock. So as we start this deep dive, just maybe take a second and think, what does God actually mean to you right now? Okay, but here's where it gets, well, really fascinating and maybe a bit tricky. This entire huge understanding, this divine nature stuff, it actually hinges on one, like, incredibly simple word, I. Yeah, seriously, just I, a pronoun. But why? Why would that one little word carry so much weight, especially when, God is speaking? That's kind of the puzzle we need to figure out today. It's like the key, the absolute prerequisite to really get what Lord Krishna means when he describes God.
That's exactly it. When Lord Krishna says I or me, it's not always straightforward. It doesn't always point to the same thing. It can actually refer to several different identities. And figuring out which I he means in any specific part of the text, well, that's absolutely fundamental. It's not just like a grammar point. It's the core of understanding the real message about reality, about divinity itself. So our mission today really is to sort of decrypt the divine language. We're going to unpack these different layers of meaning, and hopefully by the end, you'll have real clarity on who this I is when God himself is talking. It's a journey into those layers, and yeah, hopefully some real aha moments for you.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. So the background our material gives us is Arjuna knew Lord Krishna really well, as a close friend, a cousin even. That's the starting point, this personal connection. But what Arjuna didn't fully grasp, maybe, at least not at first, is that Krishna is a descending avatar, which means he is God, God in human form right there. Think about that. The divine, just, present, intimately. And that sets up these different layers because when God speaks, that I means so much more than just, me, the person, right? So when Krishna uses I or me, our sources point to two main meanings right off the bat. First, there's Lord Krishna, the person, the friend, the cousin, the individual Arjuna knew, that relatable side. And second, there's Lord Krishna as the God, the supreme being, the cosmic controller. So you've got this duality right away, the personal and the divine. That's the foundation. But it's crucial, isn't it, that even as a person, he's still divine?
Absolutely. And then we get to the third meaning, which is maybe the most profound. Lord Krishna's speaking as Brahman. This is where it really expands out, cosmically speaking. Our source is very clear here. Depending on the context, the specific thing Krishna is talking about, you have to apply one of these three meanings. Is he speaking as the person, as the God, or as Brahman? It's not random. The meaning shifts. And if you miss that shift, you miss the depth of what he's revealing. And, it's really important to clear up a common misunderstanding here. The source points this out quite directly. A lot of devotees, understandably, kind of assume a fourth meaning is always there. They think Krishna is always referring to himself as like a personal god, or maybe their family deity. But the text shows Lord Krishna never actually refers to himself that way. That distinction is vital. If we add that fourth meaning where it isn't intended, we can actually miss the bigger, more universal truths. He's often talking about something much more fundamental than just one specific form for worship. So yeah, for a clear understanding, we really need to stick to the text in just those three meanings. Let the words speak for themselves, you know?
Okay, this idea of a shifting I, it really opens things up to something even bigger, doesn't it? Brahman. You called it the ultimate foundational reality. Try to picture it. Something beyond any form, any name.
Yeah.
Just pure essence, pure being. That's kind of the territory we're getting into now with Brahman. And this is where it gets really interesting.
It really does. Brahman, as the source lays it out, has some very specific, very profound characteristics. First, and this can be tough for our minds to wrap around, it's totally formless, nameless, and it has zero attributes. Think about that. No qualities we can assign. No color, no shape, nothing like that. Pure existence. And second, it's called one without a second.
Meaning completely unique, like there's nothing else comparable.
Exactly. Absolute singularity, the ultimate non-dual reality. And it goes on, Brahman has no beginning. It exists forever. It's described as an ever-witnessing joy.
Wow, ever-witnessing joy. So nature is bliss, constantly aware.
Precisely. Not dependent on anything outside itself for that joy. Its existence is joy, an eternally blissful awareness. It's also changeless. It doesn't evolve or diminish. It stays the same. And importantly, Brahman is completely independent. It doesn't rely on anything else at all. And finally, maybe most crucially, Brahman is considered real, the ultimate absolute reality. Everything else might depend on it, but it depends on nothing.
That is quite something to get your head around. Formless, nameless, no attributes, unique, eternal joy. It really seems to push against our everyday experience.
Maybe that analogy you mentioned could help sort of anchor this. You mentioned an ocean. Like imagine this huge, perfectly calm, clear ocean. Goes on forever, no waves, doesn't even have a name. It just is. Pure water, the basic essence. That unchanging, infinite water. That's kind of like Brahman's essence.
That's a great way to picture it.
The ultimate foundation, pure, unchanging, just what is,
Yeah.
fundamentally. Okay, so
No.
if Brahman is this ultimate reality, changeless, no attributes, then how do we, and well, the world we actually live in, which is, incredibly diverse, constantly changing, full of forms and names and attributes. How does all that come from something changeless? This is where Lord Krishna brings in another huge concept, right? Illusion. And our source says, illusion is described as a power of Brahman, not separate.
Exactly. It's not something apart from Brahman. It's Brahman's inherent power. And this is where the dynamism comes in. While Brahman itself is changeless, illusion, its power, has its own set of characteristics, often contrasting with Brahman. So, because Brahman is beginningless, the source tells us illusion also exists forever. It wasn't just created at some point. It's eternal alongside Brahman. But here's the key difference. Unlike Brahman, illusion is constantly, eternally changing. It's the very principle of flux we see everywhere. Birth, death, growth, decay. That whole cycle. And another critical difference. Brahman is independent, right? But illusion is totally dependent on Brahman. It can't exist without Brahman. Like you said, a shadow needs an object.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Dependent.
And while Brahman has no attributes, illusion does. Our source specifies three: aura, energy, and matter. You can think of these as like the basic building blocks or layers of how the world appears. Aura is subtle influence, energy is the driving force, matter is the tangible stuff, they work together. And then here's a really interesting point, maybe a bit mind-bending. While Brahman is real, with a capital R, illusion, its power, is considered unreal.
Unreal. But
Yeah.
it seems pretty real to us. How does unreal work here? Like it's imaginary.
Not exactly imaginary, no. Think back to the shadow analogy. A shadow exists, right? You can see it. But it's totally dependent on the object in the light. It changes, it's temporary, it's not the substance itself. That's kind of how illusion works. It's powerful, we experience it, but it's fundamentally dependent and impermanent, unlike the absolute reality of Brahman.
Wow, okay. So you have this deep, unchanging, independent, real thing, Brahman. And then you have its power, illusion, which is ever-changing, dependent, and described as unreal. It's like your still ocean, Brahman, having this built-in power to create endless waves, illusion. The waves are always changing. They depend on the ocean. They aren't really separate from it, but they look distinct, and they don't last forever.
That's a very good way to visualize the relationship.
And it's this interplay, this dynamic between the real Brahman and its unreal power illusion that kind of explains everything we experience. It gives a framework for why the world feels real, but is also temporary.
Precisely. It accounts for both the experience of manifestation and its ultimate ground in unchanging reality.
Right. So bringing all these threads together,
Yeah.
the three meanings of I, this deep dive into Brahman, and now understanding illusion. What does it all mean for understanding the word God itself? How do Brahman and illusion combine to give us the definition of God that Lord Krishna presents?
Well, the source gives us a definition that's actually beautifully direct and clear. It says, Brahman, together with illusion, is called God. It's the combination, the ultimate changeless reality, Brahman, acting through or expressing its dynamic creative power, illusion. And it gives that wonderful analogy to help clarify.
The singer one.
Yeah. A man has a power to sing. While singing, he is called singer. Similarly, while expressing the power of illusion, Brahman is called God. See? God isn't something separate from Brahman. God is Brahman in action, Brahman expressing its inherent power. And the logical conclusion from this, according to the teaching, is that there is fundamentally only one God, this single ultimate reality expressing its power. But then it gets beautifully nuanced. This singular God is understood to be made up of or manifest through various functional gods. Just like, your body has different parts, hands, feet, eyes, each with a function. God, this ultimate reality, expresses itself through these diverse functional aspects, often with specific names and forms.
Ah, okay. So that connects back to what you said earlier about personal deities. These functional gods are the ones people might choose as their personal god or family deity,
Right.
based on what resonates with them or what they need.
Exactly. It accommodates that personal relationship within the larger framework.
That makes so much sense. It explains the one and the many, the unity and the diversity we see everywhere in religion and spirituality.
Precisely. And the source even says there are unlimited numbers of such gods, which means basically everyone can find a form, a connection that works for them. For any kind of request or path, there's likely a functional aspect, a specific divine energy or form they can relate to.
It really allows for that incredible variety, doesn't it? unity without demanding uniformity. So thinking about this whole structure, understanding God through Brahman, its power illusion, and then these functional gods, how does having this kind of framework help us make sense of all the different spiritual paths and expressions out there? It feels like it offers a way to see the connections, maybe, seeing different traditions as potentially engaging with different facets of the same core reality, moving beyond just surface differences.
I think that's a very powerful implication, yes. It suggests an underlying coherence. And maybe that leads to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to really mull over after we finish.
How does understanding these different layers, especially how a divine figure like Krishna uses I, how does that shift your perspective when you look at ancient texts, or even just think about your own understanding of what reality is, what divinity might be? Does this framework change anything for you? What part of this nuanced view of I, Brahman, illusion, and God, what part really stands out to you?
Yeah, it's definitely a foundational piece. Once you kind of grasp it, it feels like it changes how you approach these texts. We started with just one word, I, and journeyed through Krishna as a person, as God, as Brahman. Then we saw how Brahman and illusion connect to define God, and how functional gods fit in. Hopefully you feel like you have that crucial prerequisite now, that key to understanding God's own description of himself beyond just a surface read. Definitely continue your own deep dive into these ideas, see how they resonate. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.